This is our blueberry lemon cake. The single version of the recipe can be found on the blog. This is a doubled version of that recipe. We have a big family, lots of mouths to feed. So this is 1 cup of butter going into the bowl of a mixer, and you're going to beat that. If it's cold, beat it extra long to make sure it becomes fluffy and creamy. And it could take several minutes to do that. As you can see, it does become more creamy because this butter was a bit cold. And then the recipe calls for buttermilk. It calls for a cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, what you do is you take a glass measuring cup like this, and you take 2 tablespoons of vinegar. You can use lemon juice, and you put it into the glass first, and then fill it up to the 1 cup mark with milk. So you still have a cup of liquid, but you're putting a little bit of vinegar in there to create buttermilk. And now we are adding the sugar, which is 1.5 cups of sugar. And then we're just gonna beat it in to incorporate that. And then to the sugar, we're going to add the zest of 1 lemon. You could definitely increase that to 2 lemons, which actually I think I did increase that to 2 lemons for the doubled recipe because there's 2 lemons there, which I'm also taking the lemon juice from that and adding it to the measuring cup with the milk in it. So I think all total it came to about 1 and about 1/4 cup of liquid. And then I beat the lemon zest in. We're beating in 2 eggs here, just giving it a little mix after each egg. And then we're going to add vanilla extract to this. We're adding 4 teaspoons, and you just want to make sure everything's incorporated in here. Now when it comes to the dry ingredients, I'm adding the salt first, which is about 1 teaspoon of salt, and we are doing 4 teaspoons of baking powder. I add that first just to make sure it really gets incorporated in, because once we add the flour, which here we're adding the flour, I just want to make sure that the salt and the baking powder has a chance to really mix in with all the mixes we're about to do. What we do is we're actually taking 2 cups of the flour. It's 4 cups total. I did 2 cups here, and then you add about 1/3 of your milk mixture. And as you can see, it got chunky, which is what the vinegar and the lemon juice makes the milk go basically a bit sour and chunky and thick. So that was 1/3 of the buttermilk mixture. Now we're doing 1 cup, which basically we added half the flour first, then we added 1/3 of the buttermilk, we added 1/4 of the flour mixture, well, not mixture, it's just the flour. Now that's another 1/3 of the total buttermilk. Then we add the last bit of flour to the last bit of buttermilk after this. So you're just kind of adding a little bit of flour, a little bit of the milk, then some flour, then some milk, then some flour, then some milk. It just kind of slowly increases the volume of the batter, so you're not adding a bunch of flour and then trying to mix it with a bunch of milk. Is what my assumption is, not my recipe. I don't know why they do it this way, but it works. We follow directions here. And you just make sure it's all incorporated. And this is how you grease a pan. If you've never greased a pan, I just take a pat of butter and slather it into the springform pan. This one's about a 12-inch pan. The single recipe calls for about an 8-inch. And you just get it in the butter into every nook and cranny. You can totally use like vegetable shortening like Crisco. And then you just sprinkle flour over the wet spot, and it creates a little barrier in between the batter and the springform pan so it doesn't stick. And then I went a little light on the blueberries with this. With the doubled recipe, it would call for 4 cups of frozen blueberries. And a tip, if you're using frozen blueberries, keep them in the freezer until right before you add it to the batter. But I went a little light because I didn't want to go overboard with the blueberries with the kids. And I don't know, in my opinion, I would probably go up to about 3 cups with the doubled recipe. I probably would not add 4 cups to this. But the batter is extremely thick, so you're going to have to basically like scrape it out of the bowl to add to your pan, spread it around as even as possible, and you have your preheated oven to 325 and throw it into the middle rack. And then you're going to bake it for 50 to 60 minutes. But I always go in the middle, so I did it for 55 minutes. And then I just see if it's golden brown on top at the 55-minute mark. which, as you can see, it was golden brown, very nice and golden. So I took it out, and we're going to do the toothpick test. If you've never done the toothpick test, you can take a skewer or a toothpick and you just stick it into the middle of the cake. And what you're checking for is gooey batter. And if there is still gooey batter on your toothpick or your skewer, throw it in for that extra 5 minutes. Mine came out completely clean, so I knew it was good to go. So I was actually surprised. The kids loved this cake recipe. It was so great. But you're going to leave it in your springform pan for about half an hour just to let it cool so it doesn't stick. And after the half an hour mark, you can undo your springform pan and let it just cool down a little bit and then serve it. It's still kind of warm, so no worries there. It is still warm sitting on the countertop after that half an hour. So, but it's very delicious. The kids really enjoyed the cake. We used it as a birthday cake. We have a child that is extremely sugar sensitive, so it was a really great alternative for that. So if you make it, let me know, but I hope you enjoy it.